On this episode of Pike and Lustig TV, we're joined by Stuart Hartstone, an attorney who operates at the intersection of complex litigation and high-stakes legal defense. Stuart works on cases most people don't fully understand until they're in the middle of them. Allegations involving fraud, civil RICO, anti-kickback violations, and other serious business and regulatory claims. He also represents attorneys facing disciplinary actions, giving him a unique perspective on both sides of the legal system. Before joining Pike and Lustig, Stuart spent years inside the court system as a senior supervising trial court law clerk, working directly with judges and shaping decisions from behind the scenes. That experience gives him insight most attorneys simply don't have. In this episode, we break down what these complex cases actually mean, where people and businesses get into trouble, and what you need to know to protect yourself before it escalates. Let's get into it. Welcome, Stuart, to the Pike and Lustig TV podcast show.
Great to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So take me back a little bit, Stuart.
All right.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background. Where are you from originally? Where were you? Where'd you grow up?
I'm originally from Connecticut, right outside of Hartford. Go Whalers! So my family is all from up north. I've got family still in New York and in Massachusetts now. But most of us have of the immediate family, I guess, as my mother, my father had come down here before he passed, and my sister are all down here in Florida, South Florida.
Okay.
I grew up in Connecticut. I went to undergraduate school at Ithaca College in upstate New York. And then I did music business stuff for a while. My brother, he still does that. He has a production company, puts on smaller concerts, getting bigger now, up in upstate New York and Saratoga Springs area. And I came down here to Florida in 2007 to begin law school at Florida International University. College.
Okay.
So
why'd you choose Florida for college?
For law school, it was really familial connection. You know, I applied to a number of schools. I don't have the traditional, I guess, trajectory of a lot of people, at least people I came up with who went to undergrad, went straight to law school. I went to undergrad. My grades weren't as good as they could have been. I worked for a while. I did the music thing for a while. It was great. I also worked for my uncle's market research firm for a while, where we were doing studies on the juvenile justice system in Rhode Island. And so, certain things came up in the music world. I went through that experience, and they all were kind of, if you had a law degree, you might be able to make these differences. Or if you had a law degree, you could probably, people couldn't mess with you like, the disputes we were experiencing in some of the music stuff. So like my brother he was managing an artist who his prior manager owned the rights to the first album. It's like, we want to re-release this album and help this guy advance his career, but we can't because there's some contract dispute from before. It's like, well, if I was a lawyer, and it certainly didn't help, or didn't hurt rather, that my father was a lawyer. So he didn't really practice in the traditional sense. He was more corporate and did mergers, acquisitions, capital restructuring, things like that. He was pretty big in radio.
I see.
So
tell me a little bit more about the music thing. You said you did the music thing. Well, what was that?
Yeah.
Were you an artist?
I was not an artist. I recognized pretty early I didn't have the talent to make a go at it, but I do love music. I guess my father, again, one of the big industries he was in was radio. So his companies, he became very adept at purchasing radio stations with his company, his partners that were struggling, turning them around, and then selling them. Okay. But because of that, music was always a big part of our lives. We went to a lot of concerts growing up. My father was a huge music fan too. So that was always a big thing for us. In undergrad, I knew that I wanted to, if possible, get into the music business, promotion, production side of things. My brother was the same. He's ahead of me. So he lives in Saratoga Springs, as I said, and I think it really all started with maybe there was a club in Saratoga that we started doing concerts at. It was like a really cool. It was a bar actually that just had this venue unused upstairs, and the bar was struggling, and so we started booking music there. Um, and then when I was trying to figure out my major, I basically ended up designing my own major that was a combination of music, business, and writing. And
Mm.
writing is something that's came naturally to me. Again, is later on would find its way to that helps me now in my career. It's a big part of what I do. But we ended up starting Hartstone Productions and putting on every weekend I'd be working in Connecticut. One period of time, this is probably 2004 or five for my uncle's market research company doing these legal studies. And then I would on the weekends drive up there, put on concerts, Friday
Yeah.
and Saturday night.
So when you say put on concerts, what was your role
We
specific?
would book the band. We
Okay.
would, so locating the band, bringing them in, promoting the concert essentially.
Oh, so
And
you were a
then
promoter.
we were the promoters. Yes,
I
he's a promoter, and they do. So he does production too, but it's more promotion, I guess, is why you traditionally
I
categorize.
see. So as you were speaking, I thought you were the guy in the background with the guitar and singing and
No,
performing.
I'm the guy trying to create a music scene where there was none.
I
That's what we did. We for a long time we called it the Poor Musicians Fund because we just we wanted the scene to thrive, and I was making money, at home on my job and then spending it on them. And we put on, especially in the beginning, a lot of concerts that lost money, but
mm,
we would, sometimes book somebody that we knew was going to lose money because we were like, these guys are great. And we, we should, they deserve exposure and we'll enjoy the show at least,
yeah, yeah.
But it grew into something much bigger than that. And now I know there's a festival that he's a big part of up in Saratoga, actually at Lake George, Adirondack Music Festival. He's a big part of putting that on, much larger bands coming through there. It's like a multi-day, thousands of people coming through. Great festival. Um, I ended up working at a lot of working for a production company in New Orleans right out of law school. So I got an internship working for Superfly Productions, they're called. They
Mhm.
put on the festival. They started a festival called Bonnaroo in Tennessee. So that's like 90 to 100,000 people. I started working there, and then I was working at places all over the country with those guys and with other promoters. And
Mm.
I gave myself, I was like, I'll give myself 3 years to get to where I can sustain myself, you know, and then I'm going to law school.
I see. I
Two and
see.
a half years, I signed up for the LSATs and started preparing the law school thing. And I actually, by the end of the third year, did get to the point where I could sustain myself, but I had already put myself on the path of law school. And
Yeah.
I always figured I'd come back to music at some point. So
Yeah. Well, I think, it sounded like you went on a path there for 3 years trying to, have the experience and, have enjoy life, so to speak, and doing fun stuff. Um,
it's good. I mean, it's still something I'm very passionate about. And like
yeah,
I said, my brother still does it. And it's, hopefully he's hoping to, fingers crossed, move to arenas pretty soon.
sure.
So,
But
so.
but Stuart, why law? Why did you set the goal for going back
Um,
to law school?
I think it was something that was always in the back of my mind that I just knew that I would do. Like I said, I experienced the disputes with the manager on the rights to the first album, right? It was one thing. When I was doing the legal studies with the market research firm, what it focused on was what's called disproportionate minority contact.
Uh-huh.
And so different decisions being made for whites versus minorities of different kinds, different types of minorities throughout different decision points in the system. So, for example, an officer might drive by someone smoking a joint. That person's either, if they're white, maybe they drive by. If they're black, maybe they stop. Then to the first appearance, how does that get? Does bail get set differently? Then does the case proceed? Is there a different type of plea offer made? Is the next all the way through to sentencing? And I guess no surprise, what we found is that there was systemic injustice going on,
Mhm.
and I don't think that it was you know he had done, my uncle had done these studies in Connecticut, Rhode Island, a number of places, and it's not that there's conscious bias, I think, really going on. A lot of it's unconscious, and no one's really trying to be,
Sure.
acting on racism. They have implicit bias though, and those things come out, and it leads to, those studies lead to diversity training, and hopefully helping to bring show people those issues that are going on, so that they can improve the system and make it more fair.
Mm, I
So
see.
but that was, I'm sitting in a police station for a week to collect the data from the Rhode Island police. I was going to some of the juvenile detention facilities, and it just it seemed like something bigger than me that, I would like to contribute to, I guess. And
Okay.
so that was another factor that, okay, again, go back to law school, right?
I
Like
see.
you can have an influence on these things. You can make some kind of a change, contribute to the improvement of those systems. And so I think that was
Mm,
a driving force too.
yeah, that's powerful. Um, and for you to see the from the market research standpoint, everything that was happening and how it was playing out, and knowing that if you became a lawyer, you can create some kind of impact versus just looking at the data. Yeah, that's meaningful.
Yeah. And so I mean, we call it market research. It's that particular study, and a lot of them really aren't business oriented. It's not really marketing. It's just having the wherewithal to create the kind of a survey instrument,
Yeah,
process that data, and produce some kind of a report to show what's going on in a particular field, right?
I see.
So I don't want to, I call it there was a market research firm, but it was anything but marketing, I guess, that I was working on.
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's more
Um,
research and studies. So
right. So, what kind of work or cases do you currently handle that you feel fulfilled about handling? What kind of cases do you enjoy most?
uh what so here in fast forwarding here to Pike and Lustig, I do a variety of things here in the commercial litigation department. So I work on contract disputes, shareholder disagreements. It could be anything from a construction company and a homeowner, having a dispute, or we work with a lot of physicians here. So, doctor offices splitting up, or, we've dealt with things. I actually spent the first 10 years of my career doing criminal law. And so I kind of bring that aspect to it. So we'd have some quasi criminal issues come up here with allegations of, let's say, patient brokering or insurance fraud, and those things that are being approached in a civil manner uh, in this firm's view. But I also have that mind of, okay, what are the criminal implications? How does that play into this? And so those cases were fun, especially to move me into the civil litigation side, because before I came here, I had only done criminal really, and
Okay.
so it was a big change to come here, and these guys have been great working with me. I've learned a lot here. Um, but so there's contract disputes, shareholder disputes, employment issues, right? We have one case that is a age discrimination, for example. Someone was fired because they wanted to just get rid of them for unconstitutional reasons. I like the criminal part that I like is the Constitution is implicated everywhere, and so those things always in law school came naturally to me, and so I like things that implicate that. I also do bar complaints, and I represent attorneys who have been accused of misconduct and ethical violations, and will represent them before the Florida bar. And so those have that same criminal defense feel to me, I guess, and I enjoy that work too.
Yeah. So I know a little bit about you, Stuart, and I know you're the mastermind, so to speak, behind bringing a lot of things together around staff, team members, working on multiple cases,
Use
and
mastermind very loosely. Yeah,
yeah.
Pike,
So
Pike is Mr. Pike is definitely the mastermind, and I have a skill set that allows me to execute his will. Let's say it like
yes,
that. I think.
absolutely, absolutely. So if you were to look at all the things you just explained, and as far as practice areas, is there one that stands out for you specifically? Though you mentioned commercial, you mentioned criminal. Um, Is there one that stands out for you that you would practice every day, all day?
Oof. You know, when I first started, like I said, I did criminal defense, and I fell into. I got my first job out of law school was working with an attorney who did all death penalty cases. Um, I really enjoyed the constitutional implications there. Then I went to the court, and I spent about 5 years as a senior trial court law clerk. So I was managing, again with criminal, but managing the criminal side of, I ran the appellate division for the county to circuit appeals. I was in charge of the assignments coming from the judges to the law clerks. So some people, you might think traditionally a judge has a law clerk. In Palm Beach County, it doesn't work that way. In Palm Beach County, there's a pool of about 8 to 10 clerks, and they work for all the judges. There's 54 judges in the county, or there were at the time, county and circuit. We mostly focused on circuit. But if a judge had an issue in criminal, they'd come to me, and then I would assign it out. And then I was responsible for helping to train these young attorneys out of law school. This was their first job, how to research, how to write, how to approach all these different legal problems. And for me, kind of coming back to your question, is what I really enjoyed about it was not staying static in one place, but rather moving from novel legal issue to novel legal issue. Because I mean, they don't really come to our desk if it's not something that is kind of stumping the judge. Or the judges over here do their own work, and so what really attracted me to that job was being able to have that variety. And even though it was all within criminal, and now I kind of feel like I have that same type of thing here. So in terms of practicing the same thing every day, all day, every day, yeah, I think I don't know that there's an area for that for me anymore, because I crave new. I crave the intellectual stimulation of a novel legal problem. And so for me, I actually like not having that thing every day. I like the variety. I like that, having the experience I had, I'm able to, move into other attorneys here. They'll be working on certain cases in the long term, and I've got a few of those too that I'm kind of managing. But I will also, oh, you've got this issue that came up for summary judgment. Let me check it out and help you with that, and then step back out, and then step into this case and step back out. So I like that. I like that variety, and I like having those new issues where I can learn and also engage in something fascinating.
Awesome. Awesome. So, what's something about you personally, Stuart, that most clients would be surprised to learn?
Something about me personally that most clients would be surprised to learn.
Apart from the fact that you were a party promoter and a musician.
Concerts, not parties. It's not fucking raves here. Real musicians, a lot of jazz, a lot of jazz rock, and everything in between too. I don't know. I think that might come as a surprise to people. I'm pretty open with my clients. I bring a bit of a different, not perspective, but a different vibe, I guess, than most lawyers do. Meaning that I'm a lot more laid back, I think. And in terms of what would surprise them, I'm trying to answer your question, but I'm really not sure what would surprise them. My usual go-to is I'm a Hartford Whalers fan, and that team hasn't existed in the NHL since 1997. But that's not yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. I guess what would surprise them is that when they talk to me, they're coming to me with some kind of a business or civil litigation issue, and they wouldn't expect that maybe me to tell them, oh, well, I started off dealing with first degree murder, and now I'm here doing this. Like I said, it wasn't the straight trajectory that most people might have, uh, but yeah, that might be surprising to some, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. Managing different verticals in the legal field. So
for
that's
sure.
awesome. What originally attracted you to joining Pike and Lustig?
What attracted me to Pike and Lustig, when I was leaving the court, and this is kind of in the middle of COVID, I guess. COVID was coming. I was already planning on leaving, and I had a job offer, and then COVID hit, and I kind of held off.
Mhm.
But I had a few opportunities, but what I really liked about Pike and Lustig and the people, now I'm talking Daniel Lustig, Michael Pike, is when I met with them, one, they emphasized that they had both worked for the Florida bar, very big on ethics, and really told me about the ins and outs of the practices of the firm and how we ensure that we're complying with the rules, which also led to them telling me about the representation that they do of bar complaint clients as well.
Mhm.
But the so I thought that was a really cool thing that they did. But what I really liked about it was that there was something about them that was really genuine and raw, and it felt like an up and coming firm as opposed to going to a firm. And I say that again with a grain of salt because they are established, and a lot
Oh
of the
yeah.
judges
Sure.
knew when
Yeah.
I was leaving. Oh, I heard you're going to Pike and Lustig. That's great. Like those are good attorneys. You're going to do great there. But it didn't feel like the household name, I guess. I don't think that's the right name, the way to say it either. There was the other firms that I was talking to, some of them were a little bigger, some of them I had heard of. I actually wasn't familiar with these guys yet. It was a judge who referred Daniel Lustig to me. So I got a call randomly at the courthouse. Hey, I'm Daniel Lustig. I'm looking for an attorney and blah blah blah. And it took me a minute because I didn't realize he was calling for me to offer me a job or at least ask for an interview. I'm a law clerk. I'm a ghost. No
Mhm.
one knows who I am. I just thought he was trying to get to somewhere else.
Mm.
But yeah, I always felt like there was the guys are super genuine. They're very supportive. They wanted to mentor, which is what I was looking for. They were willing to take a risk on me in the sense that, well, I had only done criminal and this is a civil litigation firm, right? Personal
Sure.
injury and commercial litigation. And so they were willing to take that journey with me to basically relearn. It's a whole different set of rules, a whole different set of issues, and in some weird sense, it felt like the rebels in Star Wars. It sounds so stupid, but that's kind of how I felt about it. It was like these guys they're doing it right, man. Like they're not out there necessarily, uh, you know, on TV all the time,
Mm.
right? But what I very quickly came to realize is that we represent those guys on TV when they need a lawyer.
Mm.
We're a
I
lawyer,
see.
lawyer. We're lawyer's lawyer, right? In a lot of cases. And so it that attracted me in sense of is there's a higher level of work being done here. I
Mhm.
enjoy the intellectual challenge, right? I need to be challenged or I'm going to get bored.
Sure.
And I liked the idea of not being on the ground floor because that certainly isn't where they were, but at least right now, I mean, we're growing, we're expanding, and we're only getting bigger. So I like the idea of getting in on something a little bit younger, I guess, maybe a younger firm,
Yeah.
and growing with them. It seems
Yeah.
like there's a real good opportunity for growth with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what do you think makes Pike and Lustig different from the other law firms that you've dealt with in the past?
Uh, I think it's that genuine. It's who they are. They're very good attorneys. Um, they're very good attorneys, and just listening to them talk about a case that I'm not even working on, I learn, you know, uh, from them. And this is also, I guess, maybe what attracted me when I was hearing some of this during my interviews. But they would discuss the employment that they had, the issues that they had when they were coming up, right?
Mm.
And there was this drive in them, and still is, to have their own firm and do things differently.
Mhm.
We're not going to be a firm where the associate just gets low level work and kind of gets screwed over by the partner and isn't really being mentored and is just being used.
Right.
That's not to say that's what all the other firms are doing. And
Sure.
certainly the ones that I had interviewed with were not like that, I don't think. I got a lot of good uh, um, feedback and impressions from them that it's a different kind of firm as well. I wasn't looking for anything big. I was looking for something smaller.
I see.
But yeah, but when I talked to them and saw how they run this firm and how they treat the people that they bring in, everyone from the other partners to the staff, right? Uh, you could tell that it's not the same as everywhere else. It's just not. I mean, everyone's treated with much more respect. People are given an opportunity to, if you're here to make money, you have an opportunity to make money here. It's the way that this is set up. We I don't know how much I don't want to go too deep into this, but
No,
we're
no, no, no.
very
You,
much treated like partners even when we're not. And
yeah.
they're I've and at the same time, I can tell you, last year my father passed, and these guys were, I mean, there for me when I really do think a lot of other bosses, they had every right to be like, you know what, this you're taking too much time away, and we understand. It's kind of a long sickness drawn out thing.
Yeah.
But they were nothing but supportive the whole time. They didn't have to be. And that's, I don't think because they necessarily just like me. I think that's how they treat people with a different level of respect and care. Where when you're in here, if you're on the team, you're on the team. They're
Yeah.
my family here. So
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And I think, knowing both Daniel and Mike, there's a sense of loyalty and support that they bring to everyone. So I ditto what you're saying, and that's spot on. So when someone walks in, a potential client, say, walks in to meet with you, um, and they're approaching the firm for the first time, um, how do you want them to feel?
I want them to feel like they're heard. I want them to feel like they're comfortable. We get a lot of different issues here. Like I said, it's lawyers who are facing crisis mode because they've been accused of something and their license is in jeopardy. We have a lot of physicians who are doing restructuring or having disputes with their partners. We have sexual assault cases, that come through here. And so for everybody, I want them to be able to come in and quickly get the sense that this is a firm of people that care about their problem, and they're not just going to feel like they're not just a client, and that's us. They're a bit more than that, and we care about all the cases, and I think that's what I'd really like to know, that people, the sense that people get when they come in here is they quickly see that same thing, that they're these are genuine people. We're not just talking. That's not my job when it comes to my client. I don't just talk. We talk about the ins and outs of their case, the unique legal issues that come up, and we're not afraid to tell people at the same time that, hey, you know what, like, we might not be the firm for you. We're not just trying to take your money when we don't think that that's the best thing for you.
Right.
And so that integrity is here as well.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's one thing you wish everyone knew before hiring an attorney? Because I know sometimes it could get very there's a lot of noise, like you said earlier. There's a lot of people on TV, radio, shouting, billboards, you name it.
Sure.
But before hiring an attorney, what's one thing you wish everyone knew before?
We're talking just as a client, right? A potential
Yeah.
client,
As a,
looking, or any person looking to hire a lawyer.
yes.
I think that one thing that I always mention to people especially when I hear that they're having issues with their attorneys, is you can go to the Florida bar and look up every single attorney in Florida. I mean, if I've heard, and this is dates back some time, but I remember when I was in law school, somebody was telling me that they had an attorney for, I don't know, let's say it's an accident. I'm not practicing yet, right? But I'm hearing these stories about this attorney might have, done some kind of unethical things, and when they were supposed to go to court, it was like demanding money on the spot, things that really shouldn't be happening. And what's the attorney's name? Let me look them up. There's the discipline history there. Like, the stuff that you're telling me, it looks like it's happened in the past, And so I would say that one thing is, I would say that I'd like that the public should know is, if you're considering hiring an attorney, at the very least, you can pull them up on the Florida Bar website and see if they've got disciplinary history. Now, that's not to say that if they do, they're a bad attorney, because I've seen cases where attorneys have been disciplined and I don't think they're bad at all. Sometimes it's more a mistake that happens, and they get caught, with the rules. And there's different types of violations. We're not all just the dirty attorney who was trying to steal money. That's not what it always is. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that website is out there for people to look at. And then I would also say it's always better if you are able to get a referral from someone who's experienced something similar, right?
Yeah.
Better than picking out of the I don't know if there's a phone book anymore, but just pulling it out of the air, right? Just Googling it and finding, attorney in this area,
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone going through a difficult legal situation right now?
What type of legal situation are we talking about?
Well, specifically,
Ike,
sorry?
I said, Ike, do you need an attorney? Talk after the podcast. I'm happy to help you.
No, Pike and Lustig definitely is my attorney of choice always. But I think generally speaking, though, sometimes people are going through some serious legal issues and they don't know where to go or what the first step to take or who to even talk to. And sometimes the thing's just so heavy, they're like stuck. So if someone's listening to us right now and they find themselves in that place and they're looking for some guidance and some direction, what would you share?
I would say that most attorneys will at least, depending on the issue, it's really hard to answer that because there's so many different legal issues out there.
Of course.
Right. So it really depends on who it is, but I would say that most attorneys are at least willing to give you a few minutes as a free consultation. And while obviously hiring an attorney is a very important decision, especially economically when it's going to cost money, so often we get clients where if they would have just come to us a little sooner, we could have saved them so much money. It's a little bit of economic pain up front can often save you a whole lot of economic pain once it's litigation.
That's interesting. I've heard that same line from multiple attorneys. That's
yeah. I mean, if we're, I guess this is getting a little bit away from your hypothetical or your scenario here, but when someone's trying to start a business, hey, if you spend a little bit of money and get a proper operating agreement with your partner, if God forbid it doesn't work out, those agreements are easy to do when you're friends. They're hard to do when you guys are fighting and now there's money on the table. That's one pretty easy scenario. But I mean, I would say that for someone who's really struggling, if it's really a criminal issue, contact an attorney sooner rather than later, because waiting is gonna potentially harden your case, your ability to do certain things. I mean, and then in a commercial case, same thing. Like the sooner you can contact somebody, even if it's just to get an idea, hopefully I will tell you right now, like I said, there are multiple instances where I've heard just about everyone in this firm tell a potential client, you don't need us, and I don't know that you get that. I hope that you get that everywhere, but I could tell you for sure here, we have the business. We're not just going to take somebody's money to sign them up for the sake of signing them up, and so the sooner you get to an attorney to find out if you need an attorney, the better off you'll probably be.
Powerful.
An attorney can give you that guidance and help you ease that weight, And if I just add one more thing, and for those people who are already, they have counsel, they're in litigation, these things have a way of swallowing up your entire life. And I guess the advice there to those clients would be like, you can't let it, especially in civil, where we're talking about money. And I know money is important, right? We could be talking about your business or talking about, your savings or whatever it is, right? But your health is much more important. You're not facing, hopefully a problem, like a criminal problem where you're facing liberty or something like that. And it's, well, as consuming as it is and as personal as it always is, because it's the one that involves you, I mean, you have to be able to separate those things and not let it impact your relationship with your wife, which I see a lot, multiple times we've had conversations with clients of, guys, this this is what happens when you have a business. Someone sues you at some point, you can't control that, but you certainly can't let it ruin your relationship. I mean, this,
Right.
it's
So
much more.
there's the balance of the personal or the emotional,
Yeah.
still looking at the logical and the practical. Like
Yeah. I
as
think
an
that's a great way to
attorney,
say it.
you have to hold space for those two.
You got to keep them separate, man. And
Yeah.
I think that's why, having an attorney helps, is because, I mean, a big part of our job, in my mind anyway, is that we are the people who are not emotionally connected to it, so that I can talk to the opposing party or their counsel in a way that's not,
Reactive or
escalate
emotional.
and be reactive. That's exactly right. That's how these things often get this resolved, right? Is parties just need someone else to come in and, I'm not emotionally charged here about it. Like, what's fair, right? Let's talk about how we get both of our respective clients to a place of they never want to see each other again. What's the fairest way to break this up? Whether it's a divorce or it's a business divorce,
Sure.
right? Partners breaking up or anything like that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you want what's best for everyone involved, I think.
Yeah. Great points. Great points, Stuart. What motivates you to keep working every day?
I have a wife and
Especially.
a kid.
Yeah, but there has to be a reason why you keep showing up every day and really serving the way you do. Because like we really didn't get into a lot of really what you do, but I know the work that you do and the people you support and the position you hold within the firm and the community. But like what really motivates and keep you doing the work you do every day?
I think for me, it's twofold. One, it's the intellectual stimulation of approaching, difficult, challenging legal problems and trying to find a good resolution that works for my client or the firm's client. And then with respect to the other stuff that I do on the management side of the firm, um, it's helping others. I mean, and I'd say that with the clients too, actually. It's helping people get through whatever it is they're working through. And here in the management side, it's helping the firm excel. I think that this firm, I know that this firm, the lawyers here practice at a level that I see all the time is above and beyond what I know other lawyers are doing. And I can tell you from working at the courthouse, I've seen lawyers of all stripes, let's just say, work product of all kinds come through the courthouse from, man, this is impressive, to, I can't believe this person practices law,
Yeah.
But I can tell you that this firm is constantly trying to elevate itself and improve itself in the work product and the job that we do for our clients. And so being able to play a part in that and help across, help the other attorneys in the firm, in their individual cases, and help the staff grow in their careers as well. I think that's, to me, I think it's rewarding within itself. It's
Yeah.
really rewarding.
That's awesome, Stuart. I honor you for again, the role you play and how you show up every day. I know you're again one of those people that hold the team together, the staff and the work that you do. So, I heard about you before even meeting you. So I honor you
Appreciate
and what you do. And sharing some of your past, your life story, being a musician, so to speak, and I'll put it in quotes, promoter, and getting into the legal world because of your passion of helping and helping those without a voice. So thank you for being on here today, and
Thanks for having me.
thank you for sharing.
No,
Uh,
it's been great.
Ladies and gentlemen, Stuart Hartstone.
Thank you so much.
If you receive value from this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow Pike and Lustig TV for more insights. Connect with us on social or visit pikelustig.com to learn more. And remember, this is for informational and entertainment purposes only, not legal advice. If you need help, reach out to a qualified attorney. We'll see you in the next episode.